44 constituencies had their results verified. And often at times, those results are far from the results that were announced by IEBC, 144 of them.
The Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni now says that Azimio will wait for Raila Odinga's return back into the country before they lay out their plans based on the emerging circumstances.
The whistleblower is not hiding his identity. This is a study that has been done by a group known as Vanguard Africa, a non-profit organization that partners with pro-democracy leaders across Africa.
Meanwhile, President William Ruto has come under criticism following Tuesday's sensational claim that there was a plot to assassinate immediate former IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati. Those who spoke to NTV are stating that the president, being the custodian of the instruments of power, should have directed actions to be taken before laying the claims in the public.
But now we hear there was all this basically treasonous plan, because that is treason, to plan to interfere with the will of the people of Kenya. Therefore, the president can help this country by addressing it within the constitution, but not on public platforms, because you see, president can't complain to us. He complained to us to help him how. What can we do for him? Because we gave him the power to act. Now he can't turn around and complain to the people of Kenya. We can't help him.
Ibrahim Karanja, NTV.
All right, and we'll be having a discussion on the same when I introduce my panelists a little bit later on this broadcast. Well, the government is on the spot of a failure to disperse 42 billion shillings of the Equalization Fund to marginalized counties. The Commission on Revenue Allocation, CRA, has urged President William Ruto's administration to release the funds, which span up to 6 years. Martin Mwangi has more.
Bottom 5.6 million Kenyans, if the 42 billion shillings can actually be utilized to the Equalization Fund,
is being played.
The fund, which is a creation of the 2010 Constitution, is meant to uplift the marginalized regions. Since its inception, between 2011 and 2023, a total of 55.28 billion shillings is due to the fund. However, only 12.4 billion shillings has been released for the 14 marginalized counties in the first policy fashion to guide the fund. The 14 counties affected are mainly in the north, northeastern, and coastal parts of the country. The chairperson told the Senate last year that the balance of 42.88 billion shillings is yet to be appropriated to the earmarked counties. The fund should provide basic services including water, roads, health facilities, and electricity to the marginalized areas to the extent necessary to bring their quality to the level generally enjoyed by the rest of the nation. The fund has a lifespan of 20 years since 2010, subject to the subsidiary law enacted by Parliament.
2022.
In December last year, governors clashed with the MPs over the Equalization Fund Bill 2022. The county chiefs termed it as unconstitutional and sought to claw back the gains made. The bill, currently before the Senate, allocates only 13.48 billion shillings, leaving a balance of 29.4 billion shillings that is due to the counties. Martin Mwangi, NTV.
No questions. Now, the exodus from the rural setup into urban settlement is a movement that has hundreds of thousands of people seeking the proverbial land of milk and honey in a bid to live a better life. But over time, many realize that life in the cities without a steady income can be a difficult challenge to navigate, leaving many with very little options at making their lives better. But over the last year and a half, 50 families from 7 villages in Kibera slums have made the decision to go back to their ancestral homes in search of comfort, economic opportunities and a fresh start at life. Leila Mohammed has been in Kibra to witness the last batch leave for Western Kenya and now reports.
The journey to Dennis Ondingo's house in Kibra's Gatwe Kira village starts early Wednesday morning and we find him and his young wife busy packing for the journey ahead that both seem so excited about.
Nikifunguliwa biashara ya electrical shop, I can do the management of that na nifanye vitu zangu kule nyumbani.
After a 39-year stay in Nairobi's Kibra slum, having been born here, he notes that the time to begin life in a new home is nigh.
Mama alikuwa ameenda nyumbani kitambo. So masomo yangu nilianza Old Kibira. Nikatoka Old Kibira nikaenda Ramba High School. Kutoka Ramba High School nikaenda Technical Institute. Ilikuwa Kenya Industrial Training Institute Nakuru. Nilifanya diploma in electrical engineering.
Ondingo struggled to find stable employment in the city for years before he decided to go into business. That grocery store picked up quite well until 2 years ago, when a myriad of challenges financially and in his relationship forced him to abandon the business.
26.
With lack of a steady stream of income, life for his 3 children and his young wife has been one full of downs lately.
Naenda kujenga nyumba nyumbani. Eri nikuwe na nyumba nyumbani. Umejua ukiwa hapa Nairobi na una nyumba nyumbani, inakuanga shida ingine. Hata shida ikikupata ujui utaanza na wapi.
Her husband Dennis has made plans to have his son going to Standard 8 live with a family member for the year and join the rest in Siaya once he is done with his studies. He hopes to join his mother in business ventures as he looks for work there.
We are doing monitoring and evaluation to ensure that the businesses can stand on their own. And we keep on talking, we keep on giving feedback, and we also make field visits to see how are they doing.
This is one among 50 families voluntarily going back to their home villages in Siaya, Kisumu and Vihiga counties under the financial and logistical support of Natural Capital Trust that is working with the county and national government administration officials to support them settle back into their ancestral homes.
Mtu kuambiwa unarudishwa nyumbani, uende kwenyu, kama hauna kanyumba ndio hako, shilingi 10 ndio hii ifanyie hii na hii na ile.
Most of them came from Western Kenya, and because of that we felt so as to reduce operation costs, let's focus on one region, and given it's a pilot, we do not want to expand so thin.
45-year-old Peter Okumu has been in the public service transport industry since he was 18. He too was born in Kibra and raised his 7 children in this one-roomed house for the last 2 decades.
And we give them about a month to settle down and weigh other opportunities that might be available on the ground so that they don't go in with a formed opinion.
Ni vile sasa matatu saa zingine tu hauko job na una familia, sasa unaona nafanya saa zingine maisha huwa ngumu.
But many residents of such informal settlements like here in Gatokera, Kibra, the clamor for the menial jobs that are little and coming slowly every single day, and the ever-rising cost of living is some of the reasons many are choosing a second chance at life and hoping that the trip to the ancestral homes will be a new beginning.
Sasa itakuwa tu labda nitafute vibarua kwa kidogo kidogo. Bora riziki patikane.
We provide them with a seed fund and they set up businesses. We also work with them psychologically because we have what we call psychosocial support, because sometimes migration can be a shock.
The waste here in Kibra flows meandering in the middle of the settlements in various villages here in Kibra constituency. But even then, there is a story of hope of many who are living this kind of settlement and starting life afresh in their ancestral home.
Naenda mahali nimeolewa. Kwa bwana yangu huko.
Selina Vyambo Cheno, who came to Nairobi in the early 70s, will have her late husband's family to hold her hand when she gets back home after over 3 decades of doing menial jobs in the city.
Ule bwanake pia alikuwa na pali pake. Sasa hapo ndio huwa tunaenda kumjengea.
Niliamua tu sasa nimeona niende tena nianze maisha ya huko nyumbani.
Ameenda nyumbani baada ya kufanya vile alisema atafanya na akafanyiwa, amerudi Nairobi.
akafikiria Nairobi ni kubwa sana, ameenda kujificha sasa Soweto. Tukikupata tutakustaki kwa sababu umeharibu nafasi ambayo mtu mwingine angefanya nini, angepatiwa.
With a new beginning hundreds of miles away from what they have called home for years, some like Dennis are hopeful that things will definitely change for the better. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
Now, following an arson attack in Ngimari village, that's in the county of Embu, that left 7 members of the same family dead, the prime suspect confessed of setting the wrong house on fire. NTV's Ken Nyaga reached out to the suspect's ex-wife, who was the alleged target. Tabitha Wanja, a mother of 3, now shares her story.
Ngimari village, Runyenjes, in the county of Embu. The sleepy village is still in a somber mood since the arson attack in October 2022, which left 7 members of the same family dead. The main suspect, Boaz Wanjala, had reportedly targeted his ex-wife Tabitha Wanja, but ended up touching a different home. We meet one Tabitha, a mother of 3, and she recalls a first encounter with Wanjala while working in Nairobi.
Boaz tulijuana na yeye Nairobi kama naenda kazi, tukajuana tukaoana, na akanipeleka kwao Kakamega. Tumekaa naye kwa muda wa miaka 7 na tukafanikiwa na watoto 2.
After a few years, things started going south.
Sasa tulikuwa tunakaa naye kama Nairobi, tunaenda nyumbani matanga, tunarudi tena Nairobi. Lakini pia tu ilikuwa kuvumilia sababu alikuwa ananipiga vita. Napigwa mpaka hii magoti tu yani hata saa hii hospitali nitaenda tu. Na mangumiza kichwa. Hata kuna wakati alinipiga nikalazwa hapo mama Rusi. Sasa tulikaa naye lakini ikafika mahali mimi nikaona sitavumilia tena.
Sasa vile alioa huyu mtoto yangu, alienda akamumistrisi sana. Yani kumupiga, ile vita anampiganga ni ya huku Makoti. Anampiga tu Makoti. Kuna siku alimpiga Makoti, akimwambia anataka kwenda hospitali akamwambia asiende kwa sababu ataitishwa hii V3.
She recalls countless threatening messages that she received from her ex-husband after learning that she had moved on with another man.
Sasa hapo ndo nikakuja na mimi nikakaa huku nikapata mtoto mmoja kijana. Baadaye ndo niliona sasa Boaz ameanza sasa kutuma message za vitisho. Hapa tukua na mamangu akaanza kusema, wewe leo usiku nakuja kuwachoma na huyo mamako na huyo mtoto umezaa kijana. Wewe mwenye umezaa babako.
It was after the arson attack that Tabitha submitted all the evidence and the phone messages to the police.
Mamangu akaniambia usinyamazie hizo message, ende upeleke police station.
Her 2 children have been living with Wanjala's new wife. She has called on the government to help her bring them back home. Wanjala appeared before Runyenjes law courts on Monday and is set to appear again on 27 of this month for mention of the case where he is likely to face murder charges. Ken Nyaga, NTV.
All right, now, as the IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati exits office, questions abound on the process of the boundary review process, which is expected to be conducted next year as per the Constitution. The boundary delimitation has stalled due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the 2022 general election. The review is crucial since boundaries can affect fair representation, especially due to the numbers of constituents in different constituencies vis-a-vis the resources allocated. Marginalized communities have also raised their voice time and again of a lack of direct representation since independence. NTV's Melita Oletenges looks at the boundary mandate of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission.
The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is responsible for the demarcation of electoral boundaries guided by population and other considerations in law. The Constitution mandates the IEBC to adjust the boundaries at intervals of not less than 8 years and not more than 12 years. The last boundary review in the country was conducted by the defunct Interim Independent Boundaries Review Commission of Kenya, or IEBC, in the year 2010, in which 290 constituencies were demarcated. However, under the outgoing commission of the IEBC led by Chairperson Wafula Chebukati, not much has been done to prepare for the next boundary review set to be conducted by the year 2024.
That representation is about resources. It's not just about the land or trees or animals. It's about representation. It's about people. But it's also about the people's needs and how these needs are supposed to be met.
Among emerging issues as the country prepares for a boundary review is the issue of populous regions getting equal resource allocation to sparsely populated regions. This gave birth to the one man, one vote, one shilling debate, where leaders from populous regions have called for consideration of resources according to the number of constituents. Insecurity issues in which boundary disputes have emerged among neighboring communities is also a major factor in the boundary review, as well as a call for representation by marginalized groups who claim they have been sidelined in the country's leadership positions since the country's independence.
You take one location of these people, you put in that constituency. You take another, you put in another one. You take another, put there. These people, if they were allowed to be alone, they can elect an MP. But then you deny them that opportunities by gerrymandering, by moving them to other constituencies. So they are in minority in all the 3 or 2 constituencies. That must be given priority and serious attention by IEBC so that no Kenyan feels that they have been deliberately marginalized and denied the representation by skewed delimitation process.
In the year 2020, outgoing IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati announced that the Commission had developed the Boundaries Review Operations Plan and that it was set to start implementing it. This, however, stalled due to the outbreak of COVID-19, which prevented the Commission's officials from going round the country to gather views.
Yeah. We are not under pressure as a commission to deal with the issue of boundaries because we have up to 2024.
Article 89 of the 2010 Constitution dictates that the number of constituencies will remain unchanged and only a boundary review will be conducted on the basis of the population quota, which is arrived at by dividing the country's total population by the 290 constituencies. The results of the 2019 census of about 45 million Kenyans will be crucial in the boundary review to determine whether 26 protected constituencies that did not meet the population quota in the last boundary review will still exist.
The MPs get equal amount of money, for example, for CNDF. But there is an MP with a population of 450,000. And there is another one with 70,000. And they get equal amount of money. So you with the 70,000, you have to give a poor Kenyan, say in Mandera, 80,000 shillings for school, when the other one with around 300 to 400,000 can only afford 200,000 per child. But these 2 children are poor, both of them Kenyans, so they need equal treatment. This is why you have to pay serious attention in the coming exercise for delimitation to remove those biases and to reduce official discrimination.
Many Kenyans, however, have in the past expressed opinion to have the boundary review mandate removed from the IEBC and establish a different commission to oversee the role.
I don't think creating a new institution will be any different because they will also be affected by the same thing affecting the IEBC. The thing is to have a credible selection system that places first people of integrity and the people are unlikely to be swayed by opinions outside the law and outside your official mandate.
Time is ticking to have the boundary review conducted by the IEBC, the pressure coming on the backdrop of the retirement of IEBC commissioners led by Chairperson Wafula Chebukati and Commissioners Boya Molu and Abdi Gulie on Tuesday. Melita Oletenges, NTV.
All right, and from that report by Melita Oletenga, it's time to look at what's in the dailies this morning. And just to have this conversation and our press review this morning, I'm not alone in studio. I am joined by Vivian Ta, governance and political analyst. A very good morning. Karibu. Happy New Year. Happy to see you on M Live again. Karibu. And also we do have the Kisii County Woman Member of Parliament, Donya Aburi. So far, Karibu sana, Mheshimiwa, and we're glad we could have you on set this morning. We will also be joined by Umul Khair Harun, who's a nominated Member of Parliament, and Wanjiru Nguhi, the Fumbua Program Manager, Baraza Media Lab, in a short while. But we'll begin with the ladies here on some of the top stories in the dailies. This is what we have on the very front page of the Daily Nation. Moi's land grab case spells doom for big thieves. All right, so the genesis of this story is that the land battle started in 2014 when the Chelugui family sued Moi and the Jaswant Rai family owned Rai Plywood, seeking to return a property or compensation at prevailing market rates. So there's a lot of history behind this story. You have to go and read the entire. So we're not going to get much deeper into this story. Trouble awaits families of at least 3 governors, an MP, and other politicians if the Supreme Court allows reports from the Kibaki-era wealth audits to form part of its records, as the move could open the door for recovery of some of the prime lands documented in them. However, this adjacent story is something we will be getting into. New dossier claims Raila won in 2022, citing an anonymous whistleblower identified as an electoral official. Azimio, now in a fresh claim of victory, alleges that Odinga won last year's presidential vote by garnering 8.1 votes, that's about 57%, against President Ruto's 5.9 allegedly, which they say was about 41%. Well, the IEBC had already declared and have already declared Ruto the winner after he garnered 50.43% against Odinga's 48%. So that's a full splash on pages 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Let me get to that. But even with that, Vivian, I don't know if you watched this report. We're going to have it was our first story. I want to get your views on the same. So that's quite interesting. We've just seen, we saw what the president had to say a couple of days ago with regards to a plot, allegedly targeting the immediate former chairperson of the IEBC. And now we have a dossier that supposedly just comes up from a faceless individual. I don't know what you make of it.
It's a very damning report. I had a chance to just gloss over it, and one of the things that caught my eye was like in a constituency like Langata, where we have about 145,000 registered voters. According to the whistleblower, Baba got 51,963 votes. But according to the results, official results announced during the election, Baba got 51,223, meaning he was, if it's true, if whatever the whistleblower is saying is true, it means Baba was docked like 740 votes in Langata constituency alone. The difference is the current president, according to the official IBC announcement, he got 27,871. But according to the Form 34A uploaded in the whistleblower's website, President Ruto got 27,171, meaning he got an additional 700 votes. So I'm just,
but my question is,
I'm just wondering, like, if there's any truth to this matter, then it's a very damning report, and I think...
But my question is, isn't it curious that this new dossier comes up months after the election? Why wasn't this evidence, if indeed was there, not tabled before the Supreme Court?
On everybody's mind. But I think every Kenyan wants to know that our votes count. Your votes count. So I think it's still important for there to be like an inquiry, like a forensic audit, just to allay any fears, or if there's any truth to what these, allegations are, then we can get to the bottom of the matter. Remember, still on the IEBC, there's the issue of the death threats on outgoing IEBC chairman Wafula Chebukati. And even before this, we cannot take it lightly, because remember, we lost Chris Msando during the run-up to the 2017 elections. So I think it's important for there to be a commission, maybe truth inquiry, something commission, but also a forensic audit on what really transpired. Because if we are being told that the Form 34As that were used to announce the presidential election are not, are not legit, it's important for people to know. But I thought that matter
was settled at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court pronounced itself on the same.
Everybody thought so too. It's just that this raises fresh doubts. Yes.
All right. Let's hear from Mheshimiwa Donya what you make of this whole scenario and the latest developments so far of a shadow that still hangs over our heads 4 months after the election.
First, I will not say good morning. Good morning, all. Donya from Kisii County. Kisii people have said hi. On this, it's like if I could give my own analysis, someone wants to serve some interest. When you want to give statistics or data, you have to get it all. If they really had a good dossier, they should have given us from MCA to the president. Their interest is on the presidential results. That cannot serve well if they've not said, for example, as Tar said, even Langata, the results of the president were like this. They've not given for the Nairobi governor. They've not given for the senator, for the woman rep. That would look authentic. Now that they've narrowed down to the president, the presidential results, people will be asking, yes, you've said for the president, what of for other members, for it to look real. On the other side, them releasing the dossier now after the Supreme Court ruling, there is more to it than it meets the eye. Yes.
All right, Vivian, you.
I think, just having glossed through, this whistleblower website, like I said, just to see, out of curiosity, also to see what it's about. I think the person, the anonymous person, said that it's because they felt convicted, to share this information, and previously they were in fear, for themselves, for their families, because of things that have happened to, threats to previous employees or commissioners before. I mean, I don't know whether it's true what they are alleging, but that's why I'm saying.
Do you think this development changes anything whatsoever?
I think what it does is sort of give some sense of hope or believability to Baba's support base, because you see, all through after the results were officially announced to the Supreme Court, to the final announcement, inauguration, and even until now, a lot of people who supported Baba have never believed that the loss was legitimate. And a lot of them just accepted that, okay, let's move on, because Kenya holistically needs to move on. We need to move on from the election and start now nation building. But if there's even an iota of doubt, then I think people who support Baba would basically revert back to, oh, let's hear more. We want to see, is this true? Can there be like an audit, an investigation, an inquiry, something that either legitimizes or delegitimizes these allegations?
Yeah, Mheshimiwa Donya, you wanted to add that?
I was saying, to me, having this debate at this time, we will now start it off from the bill that is being, where we have the special sitting for the Senate. We have the new commissioners. Maybe we now start afresh. People look into the election issues. It's late. To talk about it, the president is already in office.
The train has left the station.
Yeah, there is one thing I observed in Parliament. 2008 elections, we saw ODM had more members of Parliament. This time round, we have Kenya Kwanza having more as members of Parliament. Of course, the Azimio, they have Wiper, and all kind of stuff. So if you see the generation of the new president, he has members. So what should we ask ourselves of the more members that the president has? That should also be another debate, because he has his own members who made even the speaker from Kenya Kwanza and even from the Senate. So at the moment, I feel, as you've said, the train has already left the station.
All right. Also joining us, like I said earlier on, Wanjiru Nguhi Fumbua, Program Manager, Baraza Media Lab. A very good morning, Karibu.
Good morning. Thank you.
So I hope you can chime in the conversation as we take a look at what's happening in the dailies. And certainly this is one development that we're following up on. I don't know if you've gotten an opportunity to look at that dossier, apparently. So the IEBC whistleblower showing Raila won the election. This is what the Azimio says. And the coalition is telling President Ruto to expand the scope of the planned elections inquiry to even include Musando's murder. But even before that, I want to get your thoughts on this issue of this new dossier by a faceless individual, an official of allegedly of the Electoral Commission, and what it really portends for the conversation that we're having with regard to the election process.
I mean, of course, number one, I will speak as someone who has worked in the mis and disinformation space, like during the last election. And I'm really just hoping that what is being alleged, one, has been verified and it is actually true. And it is something that if it is taken to court, it can actually hold water. And if it is something that can hold water, then, you know, it really puts a very large, a very dark shadow on the credibility of the elections. And the fact that if the will of the people was really, really averted, then what is the point of voting? And it sort of makes you understand why the 8 million people who refused to vote, why they actually won. And so it's like, do we even have a democracy in the first place? What kind of democracy is this that we're having? Who chose these leaders? Like, what is going on? What is this, you know, what is this process? If someone can just do the things that are alleged to have been done. And so it would be very unfortunate if it's true, because then, you know, it's like, okay, so does it even matter if we vote or not? Whose voice was actually listened
earlier
to?
on.
Yeah.
Isn't it curious to see this document apparently coming out in the public right now,
Yes.
4 months after the election? Isn't that a little bit suspicious?
It's a bit suspicious. 4 months after the elections, after the presidential petition, and if this was something that was known, then it should have been brought forward at the
Supreme Court.
Yes, at the presidential petition. So of course it is suspicious, and the fact that it's getting as much airtime as it is getting, I just hope that you know, we are not having some narrative or some framing of the current government. Like, we are not undermining the current government with the kind of framing and the kind of attention that this is getting. So it's a bit, I find it suspicious. I find it sad. If it can be verified, then it's really sad for democracy.
Do you read politics at play?
What? I'm sorry?
Do you read politics at play?
Yeah, with the propaganda, the narrative building, probably, but it's a very dangerous game. If this is politics at play, then it's very dangerous. It sets a very dangerous precedence, even for the next for the next elections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Vivian, even with this, so this comes just 2 days after what President William Ruto had to say with regard to the immediate former chairperson of the IEBC, Wafula Chebukati, and that the claims on abduction and murder, allegedly. Your thoughts on the same? Well, there have been calls for the president to set up a commission of inquiry into that particular issue. What do you think? What are your thoughts on the same?
I would call for the same. Like I said, you know, Kenyans want to just be sure that our votes matter. You know, our voices matter. And if there's any shred of doubt about who gets to decide who is elected into office at every level. Mheshimiwa talked about this just being an expose on the presidential. But I think it's because it's focusing on the presidential because it's the presidential that was contested. But that does not mean that all the other levels, you know, get a green light. That's why I was talking about a forensic audit, because then it would clear any doubt about any level. You know, if there's gaps in the presidential, then certainly there may be gaps in, you know, the other levels of the voting. But even for the people calling for, you know, an inquiry all the way back, I think it's important because it's interesting how we can be calling for an inquiry on allegations of abduction and murder, yet for an actual murder that happened, the case has never, borne any fruit, has never progressed or gone anywhere.
But you must understand that the president, by virtue of his position and the kind of information that he would receive perhaps from intelligence, no less, I mean, that's quite a grave allegation.
It is. And remember, earlier in the conversation, you had said, you had mentioned that it's suspect that this anonymous whistleblower would bring up the issue of the presidential election 4 months, after the vote. But think about it. Even the president's allegation about abduction of the alleged, abduction plot to abduct and murder the IEBC chairman is happening around the same time. So I don't think there's a time frame within which someone who has information must give it. At the end of the day, what we need is justice. If there was an injustice done, it doesn't matter whether it takes 2 months, 2 days, 2 years, 3 years. The time frame doesn't really matter. What's important is clarity. And if there's any injustice that was done, then it should be rectified so that people have faith in the next, commission or the next process. Otherwise, we will witness a lot of voter apathy if this whole situation is not properly handled.
All right.
Yeah.
Mheshimiwa Donya, do you think as a country we will be able to pass through this election, shadow that continues to hang over our heads as a nation, at the aftermath of the 2022 election, with the latest developments from both the political camps?
I see. You see, election after election, since I was born, we've not had an election that has not been disputed. We need to go back, think, rethink, and have proper structures. For example, how many Americans vote? Millions. Millions and millions, over like 160 million people vote. It's done electronically, and then results are released within 3 days, meaning there is where we go wrong. Kenya, with a population of 20 million registered votes, then we have issues. Like now, I don't see a reason why we should have the presidential results tallied from, for example, Kisii, then being relayed to Nairobi for announcement. We should be having, maybe even during the election day, we have the radio, TV stations doing it live. We see everything. They just send. If you realize that the last election, you stopped streaming the results. Why did they stop streaming the results? Meaning there was something fishy. If it was authentic, open, transparent, that process would have continued. Then Kenyans would be figuring out, this happened from this corner, this happened from this corner. But when you're left in the dark, that itself shows there's something wrong. So we, as leaders, we need to have a start. Now that even we don't have a commission in office, we do things right from number one, that can have a different results. But if it's the normal thing whereby the politicians are the one who appoints those people, then it's just a cycle that will repeat itself.
All right. Maybe just for fairness, we still have we do have Commissioner Irene Masito who's fighting before the tribunal. She has been suspended, however, but we'll have to see the outcome of that on the same. All right. So we have to take a very quick break here on M Live NTV. We'll be back in a short while, continue with the newspaper review, and now get into some of the issues that have been raised. Then take a look at some of those issues much deeper. Stay with us. The hashtag we're using this morning is MLive NTV. Talk to us. We'll be back in a while.
Yo, Butru Seke, the sharp guard up in the mix. Now I'm saying NTV, shout out to you, bro. Keep it locked. Hey. sauti yako ina sound vizuri kwenye masikio.
I like it. Come to the dance floor, babe.
Angie.
Leo tuna festa pe banga. Another banga. And it's just like an amazing mix. I
am happy today. Sin koma vitu unanilea. Oh yeah. Inaweka shida chini na tupa mikono juu. Banjuka tu.
No compromise, this the hottest combo.
Unistima, uninare. On MTV, don't touch that dial. Not yet. No one
Party people, jam down family, wagwan. You know how we do it each and every Saturday. On your stereo 96.3 Nation FM mazi kama kawaida kuanzia saa 1 hadi saa 4. MC Jawochi na DJ Kamozi and the Wally for most price. Au sio?
Living on the front and you got to compromise.
Alafu 10 PM.
Hey, manze tunaingia pale kwenye screen. Tunaenda kusababisha pale ndani ya MTV mtu wangu.
Pull up, wheel and come again. Talking about 254 reggae music, we'll be having none other than Nonini Genge True. Mazi na rhythm yake mpya inaitwa One Day Rhythm. Au sio? Usikose mazi 10 PM. Tune in.
Recharge and get upgraded to make memories with your loved ones this new year. Anytime, anywhere. Star Times. Enjoy digital life.
Next on Daring Abroad.
I've actually just completed my master's in international journalism.
A tale of 3 beneficiaries of the prestigious Chevening Scholarship.
I recently joined the London School of Economics and Political Science.
Including your Daring Abroad host.
Yes, I lived here for 1 year, doing everything for myself, including cooking.
Birds of a feather. All journalists, all pass through the School of Information Sciences, Moi University.
I'm not the same person who left Kenya 1 year ago.
Welcome back to the show. You're watching M Live on NTV. We're still taking a look and reviewing the headlines this morning. Another story here. Senators split on the proposal to change the law on IEBC selection. Now, this will be forming the basis of our conversation this morning. So I'm just going to hold on to that for a little while, and then get to some of the other stories also highlighted in the Daily Nation. Suspects in baby Sagini attack trade blame over dreadful attack. And this is with regard to yesterday's drama when suspects charged over the ghastly attack of Junior Sagini started accusing each other of gouging out the minor's eyes during a pre-trial hearing at the Kisii Law Court. We can see some of the suspects there in handcuffs. Baby Sagini was found writhing in pain in a farm with eyes gouged out a couple of weeks ago. Adjacent to that, IPOA to investigate Roy Man's death after police beating. Yet another story there. And moving forward, still in the Daily Nation, police, 4 suspects behind terror attacks. Now, these 4 Al-Shabaab terrorists are behind the recurrent attacks in parts of northern and coastal Kenya. The nation has learnt. Maalim Ayman, Mohammed Abdi Aidan, Elias Mohammed Yare, Ramadan Kioko, and Abdu Nuseiba and Abdullahi Bulati belong to one of the militia's most lethal fighter wings known as Jaish-e-Iman. Now, the 4 among 5 wanted terrorists that the National Police Service recently declared armed and dangerous, as it appealed to the public to share any information about their whereabouts to aid their capture. All right, and that's all with the issue of security in the country. And just lastly, on the Daily Nation, Oxfam, a new report here, wealthiest for richer than 22 million people combined. Well, Kenya's top 4 richest individuals have more wealth than nearly half of the population, a new report by the Global Movement on Elevation of Poverty, Oxfam, has revealed. Now, Oxfam says the 4 super rich persons who have not been named have a combined wealth of 333 billion, which is more than what 22 million poorest Kenyans were the bottom 40% on. And another different Oxfam report in January last year actually listed a couple of the names. Samir Mirali, you have Dipar Shah, you have Jaswinder Singh and the Kenyatta family as the top 4 richest in the country with a combined wealth of 311 billion Kenya shillings. In the new finding also, it shows that the growing economic inequalities in the country, revealing that Kenya's richest 130 individuals own wealth equivalent to 70% of the country's current budget, which is 3.3 trillion. I mean, Wanjiru, what do you think of that? Oh, the IEBC story, yeah, the ones we're going to get into. Okay, Vivian, I hope we were following up on this.
Well, what I can just say is not really just Kenya.
It's a global issue.
There's a presentation I saw about the world and how I think 80 or 90% of the world's wealth is held by 1%. 1%. Yeah. So it's not unique to Kenya. It's like a global thing, but that does not make it right. You know, the reason why we call for, you know, equity, equal distribution of resources, even as Kenyans, is because the truth is we all pay tax. We all contribute to nation building. There needs to be, you know, some sort of equity, you know. Of course, you can't all be the same or earn the same or have the same amount of wealth because circumstances are different and even the businesses that and people are doing are different. But to have this kind of disparity, I think, is just unethical. There needs to be a way that it's not just for people in Kenya that have, you know, so much wealth. And the same goes for the issues of land. You know, land issues are so emotive in Kenya, but we've always had that issue of just a few or a small clique of people in Kenya own like vast amounts of land. Okay. Yeah. Growing inequality. Mheshimiwa Donya, do you want to add on that?
And Zainab, if you would follow well, everything emanates from land issues. Those with big chunks of land are always declared as the most wealthiest in Kenya, starting from, you see the issues that we have here, the Moi family. When you are in leadership, you identify idle land, which later belongs to your family. You take it by force, it's yours, and there's nothing you can do about it. So leaders, as leaders, sometimes we think when you are in power, you serve your own interest. It's high time we thought of Kenyans more than us, because as a leader, you are supposed to serve, not to have everything for yourself.
All right. All right. Wanjiru, I know you're still looking at... No. You would like to add on to that?
Yes.
All right.
The thing about the 1% that she was talking about is that sometimes we like to think that extremely wealthy people make money. But the truth of the matter is, especially you know, saying reflecting on what she has just said, most of the time, wealthy people do not really make money, but they take this money from people who are deserving. So if you are the wealthiest and you are the 1%, you are, I mean, the unequal distribution means that you are getting wealthy at the expense of other people. Because if you're talking about people having large tracts of land, and yet we have homeless people, we have people who have nowhere to go, we have people who are literally squatters in their own country, then it means that your wealth is at the expense of somebody else. And that is why we say it is very unethical. Like, we should not even have billionaires if policy was actually done right and taxation was actually done right. Because also the wealthiest people pay the least amount of tax, or barely pay tax at all. So it's a question of, so what does the taxation look like, and what does the equal distribution of, of wealth look like, and also what have they taken from the rest of the population in terms of what we could be getting, for public service. Because a lot of the wealthy people in Kenya, their wealth can be tied to their relationship to government.
Exactly.
Without government, then they would not be, or their relationship to government, their wealth would not be, as much as it is. So they're definitely taking from us, and they keep taking as long as, they keep maintaining their power and their hold on
so
government
very
relationships.
glaring economic inequality is the gap.
Zainabu, when there was that buzz on social media when they were saying, if they close down Uganda, Kenyans will go hungry. From where I sit, if we utilize our land well, Kenya, we are self-sufficient. I went to South Korea. Most of its land is water. But they manage their food because they eat seafood, then they do importation on what they don't have. Like they import coffee from Nyeri. You can wonder, as you move along our country, you will realize half of our land is utilized, half of it is left idle. Till the day we will utilize our land, we'll still be begging, we'll still be going hungry. So the issue of land, and that is owned by most of our leaders, they should not sleep well, knowing very well that the land that they've kept idle, maybe we should have even done farming, or the NYS, they are told, go to that place, do some farming, and then the returns are made to the government. That needs also to be looked into.
Yeah, Vivian.
My comment on it was, like Mheshimiwa said, land is tied to wealth. Yeah. There's a correlation. Now, the interesting thing is in Kenya, I think only 4% of women own land. It's sad, like it's a really sad statistic, which means it boils down to when we're looking at the issues, gender issues, then it means only a fraction of women in the Kenyan population actually have, land that can be correlated to wealth. So it means there's a gap in our policy.
And you actually touch on something so very interesting. This is what's on the front page of the Business Daily. Half of married men drop wives in home and land ownership. So 51% of men now own homes alone from 36% in 2014. So that would be very interesting to see why this is happening, and does it work against women in this country?
So it undermines the whole question of equality.
Yes.
Equality from a perspective of opportunities,
right,
and wealth.
Even security.
Yes, even security. Yeah.
Right. I mean, how do you now start to empower people to leave abusive situations or to leave violent situations, or even to even the security of knowing that that this is my home, this is my home. So it's a very it's a gender question.
All right.
Yeah.
Just moving forward, let's wind up on the Daily Nation. Maize prices drop ahead of importation. Traders and consumers are emerging as the key beneficiaries of falling maize prices as farmers rush to sell the produce ahead of next month's opening of the import window. Now, the price of a 90-kilogram bag of maize has now dropped by at least 1,000 shillings, leading to a slight reduction in maize flour prices by millers. Maize prices have dropped from 5,800 to 4,800 as farmers offload thousands of bags. In turn, the price of flour has declined from 2,000 to about 2,050 shillings to about 1,950 per bale ex-factory. And the Ministry of Agriculture has allowed traders to import 900,000 tons of duty-free white maize and 600,000 tons of milled rice from next month up to August of this year. So that's another issue that we'll also continue following up on. And Business Daily, like I said, this is what we have on the front page. Half of the married men are now dropping their wives in home and land ownership. So 51% of men now own homes alone, from 36% back in 2014. That's about 10 years ago. So the share of married men who now own homes and land solely has shot up in the last 8 years. And that's a finding by the Kenya Demographic Survey, Health Survey that was released. That's the 2022 survey by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics on Tuesday. And that also shows that married men who own agricultural land alone jumped from 28% 9 years ago to 41.5%, pointing to a growing trust deficit among, people in a married relationship. All right, so this comes also at a time and the number of divorce cases have also risen. Another story here on the Business Daily, Kenya's dollar multi-millionaires double in 10 years. It's a report there cited by the Business Daily, so I'm not going to get much deeper into that. Hustler funding also gobbles up lion's share of Ruto budget. The Cooperatives and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Ministry was the biggest beneficiary of development cash in President William Ruto's first 3 months in office, as the administrative move to set up a foundation for the Hustler Fund. On Taifa Leo, this is what we have on the front page. Chebukati aacha noma. Kinara wa IEBC aacha tume bila makamishna. Vigogo wa siasa wa msifu, wengine wamemshutumu. And there you have it. Kung'atuka kwa Wafula Chebukati kama kiongozi wa tume huru ya uchaguzi kumeacha nchi katika hali mbaya hivi kwamba asasi hiyo muhimu haitaweza kutekeleza majukumu yake kikatiba endapo patatokea haja ya dharura. I'm sorry if you didn't understand Kiswahili. I see one juror is floating there. Don't worry, we'll get back to that story. And on the East African, okay, so that's not loading. So allow me to take a look at that story now that I had promised that we'll be setting the basis of our conversation, and then we're going to get to that right now. Okay, so NTV has learnt that the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the Senate is set to table major changes to the law that guides the formation of the selection panel that will be in charge of the selection, interviewing, and picking new commissioners of the IEBC. The committee's report is proposing to give the majority Kenya Kwanza coalition the upper hand in parliamentary nominations, while adding an extra slot to the political parties liaison committee, contrary to the legislation passed in December 2022 by the National Assembly. Let's take a look at that report by Sydney Chazima.
As the Senate gears up for the special sitting Thursday, details from the report set to be tabled by the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee have put to light some changes that may put the two houses of Parliament on a collision path. One bone of contention is the number of slots allocated to the political parties liaison committee.
All the 80 plus political parties have only been given one slot out of the 7 slots on that selection panel. It tells you that there is somebody somewhere who would want to have pliant people on that selection panel that will ensure they give him a pliant commission in 2027.
NTV has now learnt that Senate's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, headed by Bomet Senator Hilary Sigei, is proposing to allocate one more slot to the political parties liaison committee, which had earlier been given one slot. Going by the advice of the Attorney General Justin Muturi, the minority and the majority side in Parliament were supposed to get one slot each.
The majority side selects only one representative to the selection panel, and the minority side also selects one. So that nobody, because that, the elections in Kenya are extremely, the way we have made it is like it's the end of the world. So that nobody claims that they have been shortchanged.
Contrary to Muturi's advice, the report is seeking to remove one slot from the Parliamentary Service Commission. This proposal now means that the Kenya Kwanza Alliance, which is the majority, will get the only slot allocated. This also means that the Interreligious Council now has one extra slot than Parliament, an issue that appears not to bode well with the political class.
We have respect for the churches. The churches have 2 slots. Are you really saying that the interreligious community has a greater stake in elections than political parties? It just doesn't make sense to us.
The legislature is angling to replace the previous IEBC selection panel that was declared unconstitutional by Justice Mrima. Late last year, the National Assembly approved proposals that meant the Parliamentary Service and the Interreligious Council have 2 slots, while the Public Service Commission, the Law Society of Kenya, and the Political Parties Liaison Committee each got 1 slot. Members of the opposing Azimio One Kenya Alliance walked out of the National Assembly before the motion moved by Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah was approved. Should the Senate reverse the bill on Thursday, the reconstitution of the IEBC will face an unprecedented delay. Sydney Chazima, NTV.
All right, so today will be quite an interesting day because in the afternoon, the Senate has convened a special sitting that will be looking at approving those amendments to the IEBC Act Bill 2022, I beg your pardon. So I just want to let me begin with Wanjiru. So you have some of the amendments that were made by the National Assembly, and now we understand that the Senate has tweaked that a little bit, and which means that the 2 slots that were supposed to be given to the Parliamentary Service Commission has gone down to 1 slot, which essentially means that the ruling party or coalition will end up getting that 1 slot. I don't know, first of all, just looking at that process of getting the selection panel for the IEBC commissioners, how important is it for this country?
It's, elections in this country are usually, just like the speaker just said, they're usually like a do or die situation. And this is because when it comes to election, it's really about who gets to control resources. And so therefore, if you feel like the people who get to sort of manage how we are going to select our leaders, if it looks like the process is not very transparent, and if it looks like it's not as as accountable and as transparent, then it casts a shadow upon everything else that emanates from that election. So which means like the process of the election is not is not viewed in a credible manner. The government that comes out of that is not looked at in a credible manner, and even the institutions emanating from that government. And so that means that then it becomes very difficult for the public to trust the government, because it's not even a government that they chose in the first place. If now we are having a bit of a problem, because of the things that are coming out from the previous, from the previous commission, what then happens when the process begins in a, on a foot that is not very, it looks like there's some sort of power play to sort of like control what happens and to have an upper hand and to have some power play in it, then it means that if the process itself is not credible, then even when we get to the elections in 2027, we're going to question this entire process. And so even the voting itself is going to be like, does it matter? Did my voice, like whose voice are we listening to? Is it the voice of the people, or is it actually the voice of some specific people who decide who is actually going to, who is going to conduct the elections? Yeah.
Vivian, your thoughts?
For me, I agree with SG Sifuna. I don't think that the Interreligious Council of Kenya has a higher stake in our elections than political parties. In my view, political parties are the custodians of democracy, so to speak. Because this is where we get people maybe fielded for elections. We get to understand how governance is being done. And if we say that we are going to give only 1 slot to, the ruling party, and then maybe 2 slots, I mean, in this case, even LSK, that is probably representing the judiciary, the judicial arm, so to speak, is getting only 1 slot. Why should the Interreligious Council get 2, or more? I think there should be some sort of fairness to this whole thing, but above all, it should be constitutional, meaning there should be some fair, sort of distribution of these slots, because this thing, the parties that have an interest or a stake in the elections, we've seen how elections have been, from 2002, 2007, all the way to last year. And typically what happens is the people selected, to be commissioners, chairperson and commissioners in the IEBC usually usually represent some sort of interest. That's just how it works, how it is. Because a lot of these people, you'll find, they are 7 to 9 commissioners, but they are nominated by different, bodies. My concern is if these proposals that we're discussing pass, and the Parliamentary Service Commission gets only 1 slot, which is then allocated to the ruling coalition, then it means all these other nominees, there's a high possibility that the government can influence who they nominate. The government can easily influence who maybe LSK nominates. The government, can influence even who the interreligious, council nominates, which will give them an upper hand and more numbers into this thing. So it makes it like a one voice, one-sided kind of thing. It doesn't seem fair to me.
Okay, so yes, Mheshimiwa
To add on what she has said, why did they decide on bringing this bill? Probably to solve the previous problem that have been there. So if the bill was meant to solve those problems, it should not trigger again more problems. Like I heard when the speaker was, who is this? Yeah, Attorney General speaking, he said there should be 2 from Parliamentary Service Commission, from the majority side, and then from the minority. That seems well. And that is how we should treat this.
But that was the recommendation from the National Assembly,
yes,
right?
that should be. That should be if they want to cure this problem. But if they want to go the one way of having 1 from Parliamentary Service Commission, then trouble looms. This is where it will start. 2, you saw the 4 commissioners having their own press conference at Serena, and the IEBC chair from Bomas announcing the results. So this panel should tell us what is the role of the other commissioners. Everything should be spelled well during the election. The CEO of that commission, what is his role? Who are supposed to announce the results, and what if some don't give nod? But the fact that we only saw IEBC chairman announcing the results, then it is a one-man fight.
And also remember that in the 2017 ruling, it was ruled that election is not an event. It is a process. So if the process itself already looks like one person wants to have the upper hand, then the entire process then is put into question. And I think, and I agree with, with Mheshimiwa here, that we should have the 2 slots as, as proposed by Parliament. The 2 slots for the Parliament, so that we have the majority and the minority represented, so that we will not have a problem where we are coming back to question the process of selecting of the commissioner, because it will be a problem. It will be a really big problem.
Vivian, you raised an issue of why perhaps we would have more slots, allocated to the interreligious sector. But I mean, when you're looking at these, all these people who would be given this opportunity, isn't the inclusion of LSK and the interreligious society into this add to a level of neutrality on the process?
I'm not against them getting a slot. I'm just saying it should not be at the expense of political parties. And my concern is that we have already, as per the proposals from the National Assembly, Public Service Commission should get 1 slot. When you say Public Service Commission, already that's government, which means the ruling party or the ruling coalition can have a say on who gets to be appointed from the Public Service Commission. So if the ruling party is getting the Parliamentary Service Commission slot, it's also getting the Public Service Commission slot. They can, they can influence the LSK slot. They can also influence the political parties liaison committee slot. That already gives them 4, which is unfair and advantage. And remember, the political parties liaison committee largely has representation from political parties that do not have representatives in Parliament, so to speak. So it means having 2 slots under Parliamentary Service Commission gives at least 1 slot to the ruling coalition, 1 to the minority side, but the parties, the political parties that don't really have representation in Parliament can get, their slot covered at the political parties liaison committee. So we need to see a balance. We need to see a balance in this selection committee, because the selection committee will ultimately, decide who gets to be shortlisted for the selection by the president.
Then it's a political, this is political, and it has to be handled politically. So if there is any number that should shoot up, is from the political side, not from the religious side. If you go to the hospital, for example, you are sick, you won't be told to go to school for treatment. If it's politics, let it remain politics. And then, of course, the religious side, now they can have one representative. Yeah.
Yes. Wanjiru, I mean, do you think with all these issues now cropping up right now, right, even before the process has begun, we've seen, you know, the concerns that have been raised, like the ODM Secretary General who's talked about it, and certainly it's going to be quite a big debate today in the afternoon in the Senate, perhaps, what maybe Mheshimiwa, you know, I know you're on the other side, but you can tell us how it will go. But so do you think that this begins to cast a shadow of doubt on the election process?
Well, depending with how it goes, because again, you know, when you look at equity must not only be done, but it must look like it's being done. So depending on how the debates go today, and depending on what proposals are accepted and what they're not, I mean, we really are going to have to wait to see what does the Senate actually, you know, settle on. If they decide to go on the proposal to change, then already we have a problem there. The process has already begun to be a bit questionable.
Do you think there's going to be a bit of a, you know, friction between now the National Assembly and the Senate in case those changes sail through in the Senate?
Yes, I think there will, but then I don't have much to say about it because we've still not seen like what is really going to happen and you know like what the Senate actually decides, because right now we're just seeing them, you know, going back and forth. Right. But when they actually sit down to decide is when we will know, okay, so have the proposal gone through or have they not gone through. But then also I think it's the I really don't have much. Yes, I'm just, you know, I'm curious to see what happens. I'm curious
a person
also,
who is inside
yes,
the house.
I'm also curious to understand.
Can tell us, because
yes.
We saw the speaker, I beg your pardon, the former speaker, of the National Assembly, that's Jesse Muturi. He actually spoke about this, and you know, he talked about the slots and the amendments that were made in the National Assembly. So of course in the Senate, with, you know, a change and a tweak in those amendments, it would, you know, create, perhaps, I don't know, would create some sort of tension between the two houses?
Yes, because initially as they had planned, one from the majority side and minority side,
very
it would have shown that now, yes, this bill is out to solve the problems that have been there. So if they go these other routes where they want to give the majority side that slot, definitely even those people who wanted that bill to pass, they will have more anxiety than anyone else. And that shows that already the process has not kicked on well. The doubts in the electoral process will still linger in our minds. And what I wanted to add, Zainabu, on what Ta said on religion, you see, religion, they should be our mentors. They should be our mirror. We look into them, we say, oh, religion has said, religion has said. Previously, I'm not talking bad of religion, they've not been, they've not done their part well, where we can say they've said and we really have to follow. You remember when we had COVID, the Ministry of Health directed all Kenyans to wear masks. Believe you me, even those who don't want to wear, the way it was coming out from the minister, it was Mutai. Everyone believed, oh, this is the right thing for us to do. So we need someone, if the religious class wants us to believe or they be our mentors, they should mean what to say. They should be neutral. They should not take sides.
And maybe by having those two slots in that selection panel, then perhaps the Interreligious Council will create and give a sense of, you know, arbitration in the process, perhaps.
I wish they should have been giving that arbitration from before. It should not start now. You see why I'm telling you? It should be something that is in them. We look and say, wow, this is what we should do. The religious leaders have said. So as Mama County from Kisii, I'm just giving them a task. Let them remain neutral. They do their thing.
Let me just comment.
Let's begin with Nigeria, then we'll get Vivian.
Let me just comment on the religion. I did not want, I was really biting my tongue because I was like, I don't want to say much about religion. But in this administration, we've seen like a specific religion, like in State House and all of those things. And I'm very I'm sort of curious to see like how much power and influence, especially the Christian, you know, I know it's an interreligious council, but if you're going to give two, like, I'm really curious to see what the Christian community, like the kind of power they have in the next 5 years and the kind of influence that they have on the, and we've already started, you know, to see how unfair it has been, you know, with the services at State House and without, so I'm really holding my breath. I'm just like, it looks like there's a lot of influence, which is really not a good, because then how do you hold, you know, like the church accountable? Do they have, are they answerable to the Constitution? Like, how do you begin to hold this other institution accountable? And so I'm very, skeptical. I'm very skeptical. I'm wondering what influence is this? I'm really questioning that influence, and yeah, you know, are they going to hold the government accountable? Can they be held accountable? And so I'm very skeptical about the kind of influence and the, you know, and the kind of influence that they have is something I'm particularly concerned about.
Vivian,
for me, I think it's two things. Number one, I don't think that people in the religious class should be neutral. I don't agree with that point of view. I think they are Kenyans, and they should be free to express their support or not, or you know, disapproval of issues that are happening, you know, in the country, in the leadership, issues of corruption. I think we should move away from expecting religious leaders to be neutral. There's nothing like that. I think that's hypocrisy. At the end of the day, I'm sure each of them has a point of view. They may not voice it, but expecting neutrality, I don't think there's any such thing as neutrality when it comes to our politics. One way or another, utakuwa umegemea upande umoja, you know? You'll definitely take sides one way or another. But coming back to the issue of just the allegiance, so to speak, of especially the Christian community to State House at the moment, it actually brings you to wonder, when we're considering the 2 slots that have been given to the Interreligious Council. From the top of my head, I would expect that one would probably go to a Christian, you know, leader, and maybe another one, a Muslim leader, from the top of my head. Then I ask myself, so we have one person nominated by LSK. We have one person nominated by the Political Parties Liaison Committee. We have one person nominated by the Public Service Commission. And if the changes,
the Parliamentary Service Commission.
Yes. Now, if the proposals, the new proposals by Senate goes through, where the Parliamentary Service only has one,
right?
Already, I can see the ruling coalition having a lot of influence in the numbers, because I can already see, maybe from the religious side, they might get people who are allied to them, the 2 slots, very easily, just going by how the state has been relating with religious leaders since the inauguration, since actually the declaration of...
But is it perhaps just a perception issue by the virtue
it is a perception. It is and you know, in politics, we say perception is reality. What seems to be or appears to be, it can very easily translate to the reality. So if we're saying Interreligious Council of Kenya has 2, and those 2 slots can easily be swayed to go the government, you know, way. Of course, nominated by a different body, but allied to the government. And I can see the same thing happening maybe in LSK. I can see the same thing happening with the public service nominee. So easily, the government coalition side can have 5, you know, slots already just from this, which doesn't sit right with me. I don't think that is being democratic. And I would really want to see something different done. But also just thinking about, okay, so what happens if Senate doesn't agree? You know, they have friction and everything boils over and they don't agree on the way forward. What happens then? Does it mean, I think from what I've seen in the reports, it seems that the various organizations will go ahead and nominate. It's like either way, whether they agree or not agree, it's like the process goes on. There needs to be a check on that. Parliament really needs to step up in their role of oversight, oversight of the executive. Otherwise, it's going to be a downhill trend. They're going to use those so-called numbers to force things down everybody's throat, and I don't think that's how it needs to be.
So do you read sort of a capture of the legislature by the executive?
It definitely feels that way so far. I know they accuse the Uhuru administration of state capture, but it looks very much like even this current administration has captured the judiciary, you know, has captured the legislature. From the way things are going, just by seeing, you know, 5 months since the inauguration, it looks very much like even the legislature is under capture. They will just do the bidding of the executive, which shouldn't be the case, because the legislature primarily represents the people.
Let's hear from Michelle.
I've always believed in separation of church from state. What I've always believed in leadership, when you have your own way of expressing things, not that you should not air your view on which side, which political side you are not, but if it comes to matters of the nation, there should be that separation of voice. What is state saying this, and what is the church saying this? When it is the same, we don't have someone who can gauge out what is not right. There must be a separation of church and state. Yeah.
All right. On that point, we have to take another break here on M Live on NTV. Let's take that quick breather. We're back in a short while. Stay with us.
My name is Michael Olunga. Watch Sport On every Monday, 10 p.m. on NTV.
Because of the pain, the girl now goes to the neighbor and says, please don't tell anybody, but I'm in pain. When the neighbor checked, she found things, but she can't. You know, in the slum, you find out this is happening, but you leave it. What do you do? If you follow it up, you'll die. You'll disappear. So the neighbor just left it until the day we came and she told us. Yeah. So when the mzee saw us with the neighbors and the kids, he disappeared. We took the girl. Me, I couldn't check because I was afraid. Remember, I'm a mother of a girl, so it really hit me so bad. Yeah. So one of our team member took the girl in the car, removed her clothes and checked. And when she checked, she screamed. She screamed and she said, come and see.
Recharge and get upgraded to make memories with your loved ones this new year. Anytime, anywhere. Star Times. Enjoy digital life.
Auditions are the only places where I can act.
I hadn't been acting or auditioning for quite some time.
You were never my mother. She has this psycho side, which I don't think it's normal.
The character is
drama on drama on drama. True.
Tune in for an unmissable table talk as Kenya's top actors from the local drama Kiu.
Leave me alone!
Blessing Lungaho, Celestine Kashuhi, Derek Banga, Stephen Joroge, Joyce Minor, and Anita Wabuda engage in an intimate one-on-one discussion about their craft and work on the set of Kiu.
Yeah. Once you catch one episode of this show, you're going to somehow tell this guy.
Thank you for staying with us. You're watching M Live on NTV. I am with still Wanjiru Nguhi. We do have Donya Aburi, the Kisii County Woman Member of Parliament, and Vivian Ta as well. Well, thank you, ladies, for still staying with us and having this conversation. Now, off air, you know, we're having a conversation on why perhaps it is important to have the Interreligious Council as part of the selection panel, by the virtue of the fact they actually perhaps will be getting, you know, 2 slots. If the amendments are passed in the Senate. Mheshimiwa Donya, the religious council would be there for a very specific, purpose. So I want to believe that in this, from where I sit, they would be able to look at issues of, the character of the potential commissioners, perhaps. Or what exactly would be the biggest role for the members who will be representing the Interreligious Council in the selection panel?
This being a political process, we should have even gone the constitutional way, where we internalize Chapter 6. Leaders should be of this, they should have integrity. In fact, all these things, instead of even forming commissions of inquiries, selection panels, or other kind of stuff, we should even go the constitution way. What entails a good leader, state officer? What are you supposed to do? Because I'm sure they want the religious leaders to say this person should be of these qualities, blah, blah, which is defined in the constitution. They are all maybe, of course, there are leaders, they show us direction. We would have given this matter to the political class, maybe even the other member coming from the religious class. We give that to the political parties, where we feel that all parties are represented. All parties are represented. Then the religious class can have one. So I still stand to say this is a political process. Let it be handled politically. But
don't you feel like then the political class will suddenly have an upper hand?
No, majority of them, if we have two religious leaders, members in this thing, it looks more of a church function than a political process.
But they're only taking, not half, but a certain percentage of the selection panel.
But if you look at the members, there are only 7.
If you decide to say that we should give, more slots to the political parties committee, perhaps, for example, the Parliamentary Service Commission in that instance, don't you think that this is giving too much power to the political class?
In fact, I've not even said the Parliamentary Service Commission.
Right.
Political liaison committee, because it represents all. They also have their board. So they will choose 2 from their side.
Who are also politicians. Isn't that giving, the political class
this is a political process. It's not where we are choosing a bishop or a pope. It's a political process. So them, you see the number of members are 7. 2 from the Parliamentary Service Commission, 1 from the Public Commission, 1 from the Law Society of Kenya, 2 from the Interreligious, and then 1 from the Political Liaison Committee. So we should even have then 2 from the Political Liaison Committee instead of having 2 from the religious, because this is a political process, not a church process.
Okay.
Yes, just to add, I'm really questioning the presence of the interreligious community, and I was just saying, if it is about the ethics of a person, then shouldn't EACC step in and say, actually, this person we have an investigation into this person because they have this and this, and they have embezzled this amount of money, and they have done this and this and this. Shouldn't we be having then a report from the CID? Shouldn't you come in with a good conduct? Shouldn't you come in with your KRA? Like, if it's really about ethics. And I don't think it's really about ethics. I think there's someone who's playing, a different game of cards with their own rules, and I'm very suspicious about it. I was really wondering why. Why?
You're reading some mischief?
Yes, it's because I don't understand why is the interreligious? I genuinely don't understand, what their role would be, or what is at stake for them, or why we should have, interreligious, at the expense of the representatives that that Mahesh has mentioned here. Right. I'm just really. I'm a bit confused, yeah.
I agree with Hesh. On the statement around, it's a political process. It needs, and which will lead to a political outcome. We shouldn't give. I don't think there's need to give equal slots to Parliamentary Service Commission and Interreligious Service Commission. Interreligious Council of Kenya. Yes. I mean, they are not political leaders. They are religious leaders, and they're leaders in their own right. We're not downplaying their ability to lead and their place in society. But we're saying this is a political process. The political parties should carry greater weight than, you know, religious players. So can we just see, you know, some balance? Of course, I don't think our sentiments can make any difference right now, because the proposals have already been, you know, forwarded to Senate, and seeing how things happen, you know, in the House, especially with in issues of numbers and the ruling coalition having, you know, greater numbers, it's likely that whatever the majority want, they will push through. But that doesn't make it democratic, you know, that doesn't make it fair in any way. Yeah.
All right, let's just wind up on this conversation. I just want to get your comments on the fact that in light of what happened in the past election, in the 2022 election, you know, we know of the split of the commissioners, the Cherera 4, and of course the ones that were led by the chairperson. The constitution of this commission will be extremely critical and will be of concern to many Kenyans as we gear towards the next election, which is in 2027. I'll begin with you, Wanjiru. As a Kenyan, from where you sit, what are some of these key concerns that you will be looking at while this, you know, selection panel gets picked and the process of coming up with the commissioners begin? What are some of the key concerns for you?
My key concerns obviously are about equality. Of course, I always, every time, you know, I always center, you know, young women and women. So I would like to see some sort of balance. I know I mean, we're having conversations about who should be represented, who should not, but I would like to see some sort of balance, some sort of gender balance. I mean, it would really, you know, it would really be helpful. So I'm keen about that. Like, what does equality look like, even as we look at the, like, how is this entire process looking at equality? Are we really paying attention to equality? That for me is something I'm really looking forward to see, the actual you know, selection, you know, committee and the actual IEBC commissioners, and even because that informs how they're going to work, it informs how they're going to do their messaging, it informs the next 5 years and even in the next election. So I'm really keen to see how many women will be represented, and also it's also important to have some sort of regional balance as well. So that, I mean, and it's difficult to do that with like 7 members, but I really want to see some form of equality.
And I think it's going to be tricky because then,
it will be very tricky, yeah.
With what you know, Justin Muturi had said during the launch of the PPE report on Monday, he said that the reason why he proposed the parliament, the 2 slots for the Parliamentary Service Commission was to nominate a man and a woman. Yes. So if it goes back to one, I guess your concerns will
okay, we don't. So I'm really concerned about, you know, about the equality.
The issue of equality.
The issue of equality. Right. Yes.
Mheshimiwa, for you, what will you be very keen on?
Being a woman representative, I will also echo what she has said.
Right.
We want to have balance.
Yeah.
How it will be done, we don't know, but we have to have balance. Then the total outcome of what they will be doing. Will they have good procedures on having free, fair work done, or it will still go to the normal way where we know this thing has happened, it remains the same and nothing changes? Do you know at the moment Kenyans are even sick of voting? Some didn't even vote. They said it's already known who is going to be president, even who is going to be MP. If you remember well the elections of 2017, they were saying most candidates had 54%. Why the 54%? While we know well, we don't have same number of registered voters in various places. People are tired. Come on my way. As a woman rep, I have 1,300 polling stations in Kisii County. If you have to pay your people 1,000 per day because results are counted 3 days, that is 3,000. 1,000 per day, which you can't pay because you will be in a polling station waiting for only 1,000. So assuming you pay them 2,000 per day, that is 6,000 per person. You have 1,300 polling stations. How much is that? Over 7 million for guarding your votes and making sure that your results are accurate. We need a clear process on elections. What do we need to do? Sometimes I even dream, can we go the electronic way. Which Kenyan can come out and say, today, 2022, I had 4,000 balance in my M-Pesa, I sent 4,000, but my balance is 6,000. They've never made any error in terms of your M-Pesa balance. So even the electoral process should ask these institutions, how come your results are correct? Or Zainabu, you have received 1,000, 100,000 in your M-Pesa, and then they tell you because you sent 1,000, now there has been an error from Safaricom, your balance is now 100,000. They've been right on what they do. So this process, they need to consult a lot on how we can avoid these imbalances in the political process.
Right.
And also, let me just add, on top of the equality, I want to...
She wants to add something.
Sorry,
just 1 minute. Okay, let's have Vivian then.
So I wanted to say that on top of what they've mentioned, for me, my expectations would be above all, I think, transparency, some level of merit. From what I've seen with the appointments that have been done in government, it's like very few of them center on merit. It's about loyalty. It's about, you know, how supportive you've been, so you're being rewarded. I hope for the selection panel it will not be about rewarding people. I hope it will be about merit, people who have competence to do the job and do it well. I would also, of course, want to see regional and you know, gender balance and just a level of credibility. You know, these people we are appointing, who are they? What sort of characters are they? We want to have some sort of credibility, competence, skills to do the job and to do it well. I wanted to mention something about, but it slipped my mind. Let her comment as I...
Yes. You retrace your thoughts? All right, yes.
My dream, my dream is for Chapter 6 of the Constitution to not just be a suggestion and not to be treated. You know, when grown-ups are having conversations and then children are, you know, are sent out of the room, I really hope that Chapter 6 stays in the room, that Chapter 6 is heard in the room, and that we actually see, you know, what it would look like if Chapter 6 is actually implemented. So on top of the equality, we really want to see some ethical process. We want to see a transparent process. We want to see integrity at work. My dream is for Chapter 6 to be an adult, respected and heard, and actually, you know, that's what I want to say.
Right.
Also, I've remembered what I wanted
then
to
we wind
say.
up on this conversation.
Yes, when it comes to credibility, my thoughts have gone back to 2017 and the whole fiasco around the elections, and I think a report was done after that, and majority of Kenyans did not feel the IEBC was credible, did not have faith in Wafula Chebukati to lead the commission into, you know, another credible election. Yet we went to 2022 election without, you know, handling that whole issue. So it's not lost to me that at the back of people's mind there was still some question marks which were unanswered all the way from 2017 that we carried into the 2022 election. And that's why now, even if you raise any kind of doubt, it's like it's easy for people to believe. Why? Because even from the get-go, there was no faith, you know, there was no 100% faith that this commission could deliver a credible election. As the various parties nominate people to the selection panel who will then select the next commissioners, they should put above all else, like Wanjiru said, integrity. We want credibility. If there's no credibility and transparency in the process, I can assure you there'll be serious voter apathy come 2027. They may as well use bots or algorithms, you know, and just give it to whoever it is they want.
And come to think about it from the religious side, we've seen pastors joining politics, and maybe they felt that from my end they can have their own political wing, maybe religious political party, something of the sort. Then they move in with the political class and have the process move. But giving more slots to the religious side, we bend this discussion from being a political process to think of it to, you know, religion, we've always known it right, doing the right thing, following the chapter 6, as she has said, integrity and all kind of things. We have people who can vet those members, but let this be made a political process following what the Constitution says.
All right. Wanjiru, we're good on that?
We're good on that.
Okay.
I think it looks like we have really, I feel like we have really, but let me just clarify. We're not saying that religious parties cannot participate in politics, but I feel like there's a specific responsibility, which is to be the voice of the people. When the people are being oppressed, as a religious community, it is your work to make the oppressor uncomfortable. It is not your work to make the oppressed uncomfortable and to blame and to sort of participate in the oppression. So that's what I'll just say. Like as a religious community, your work is to make sure that the oppressors are uncomfortable. And what we're seeing, so I'm holding them to that standard. Please make the oppressors uncomfortable.
All right.
That's what I'm going to say.
Okay. Yes. Vivian. Okay. You have the last word on that matter. Yeah.
I've just found the record of the bishop from Baringo actually openly asking the president to give them government jobs. The story goes that, you know, church coffers are running dry or something like that. And so even some section of religious leaders are positioning themselves and asking openly for state jobs. Can we just have a clear, you know, boundary or clear-cut roles? You know, religious leaders have a role in the society, but can they play that role and play it effectively without thinking of, oh, the only way I can be effective is to get a government or state job? Leave that to, you know, civil servants and political players.
Lastly, on top of it, let's understand that religion is not about going to church. To be precise, religion is, are you credible? Are you transparent? Are you honest?
It talks about the integrity that a person has.
Yeah, it's not about I go to church on Saturday, I'm maybe a Muslim.
It speaks of the character of a person.
Who are you? Who are you? You can remain in the house and they clutter some clothes, take to your children's home. That is your religion. So it should not be based that, oh, this church must say this, it has to come from this other side. Who are you?
Okay. So I think it will be very interesting this afternoon when the Senate sits to look into those amendments into the IEBC Bill 2022. Well, let's move away from that. And because we do have you here as the Kisii County Woman Member of Parliament, I don't want to skip over this because I want to get your comment on this issue. It's been, over the past couple of weeks, it's a story that continues to develop and we've been following up very keenly. It's on the page 8 of the Daily Nation. I hope we can get that on the screen. The suspects in Baby Sagini attack trade blame of a dreadful attack, because this happened in Kisii, and yesterday there was a bit of drama when the suspects charged over the ghastly attack of Junior Sagini started accusing each other of gouging out the minor's eyes during the pre-trial hearing, which happened at the Kisii Law Courts. From where you sit, Mheshimiwa, maybe just give us an idea, an understanding of exactly, perhaps from what, you know, the people you've spoken to on the ground, what really happened and what the situation really is, that how is the child?
Before even I move to Baby Sagini, first of all, let's define our society. We have several cases that are reported to various police stations. How they are handled make the results of what is happening to date. For example, if you are a woman, you've been battered, you've had fights at home, you move to the police station, you want to report your case, then the police officer tells you love matters should end at home. I, as a police officer, was not there when the two of you were courting. So don't come to the police station reporting your wife or your husband, and while you know very well the government does not take care of couples. The way you report issues, how you handle them. Now, people already know, even if I killed you, or even if I took away your property, I go to the police station, nothing will be done. So they start taking charge of themselves. They want to control what they say, what they do, because they believe the government will do nothing. Like on Baby Sagini's case, before it came, you saw people banning the elderly, telling them that they are witches. It happened in Kisii. After that, it was aired all over social media. The cases went down, and we have no suspect, and everything has gone silent. On Baby Sagini, they were with the sister. When we followed on, we were told that even the sister was being molested by one of the family members.
Allegedly.
It was alleged. On the defilement matters,
Right.
I've been in office for the last 4 months. I have over 16 cases of defilement. They go to hospital. Later they say, you see, this is your relative. If this thing goes out, your relative is going to be jailed. Let us make it out of court settlement. We need to have strict laws on defilement. Of course, in Parliament, I've gone to the legal department to consult on matters on defilement so that we strengthen those bills that protect our minors. I'm asking the police to do their work. Even the teacher who was butchered in Nyamira, the suspect has not been caught. They are saying they can't trace the suspect. So many things are coming up in form of security matters. On top of it, we have illegal, we have drugs. They affect. Like Bangi, if you moved to our places, it is like sweets or hi. You see, when you greet someone in the morning, how are you, how are you? And no one will take you to court because you've said hi, maybe to tar or so when the youths engage in drugs and there's nothing done about it, that is how evils start becoming more in a particular society. That is the
current situation in
that
the county?
Is the current situation in Kisii. I was even there 2 days ago. Women were coming to me, they were telling me, Mama County, we are not even sleeping at night because we wake up in the morning and we find they've stolen our maize from the shambas. They are going, and also the, how do we say, they've taken our maize from the shamba. You go to, when you report, nothing is done. They are harvesting raw maize because of theft that is really increasing in our area. So there are so many things that need to be looked into. As a leader from Kisii County, I'll be shouting high. I'll be your voice, anything that goes wrong.
But even away from that, what else, you know, you sit in Parliament, what more can you do?
Now, like when I've told you of the bill that
Right.
I went with to the legal department, I was telling them, we have teen pregnancy cases in Kisii. How can I bring the bill in Parliament to make sure that we have proper ways of dealing with this? They told me, you remember the Joki Ndungu bill? Now what we'll do, we'll emphasize on this, we add more points on it. You have to be advised on what to do. I'm even also asking on a bill of waiving of hospital bills. You have a kin or a relative who dies, your bill is at 10 million. Okay. You are paying 10 million for a dead body. So I asked of what can we do so that we help our people. They have procedures. You can't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to have a bill and it is passed.
Okay.
I'm on the process of the teen pregnancy bill because our teens, it is really a total mess. And on the thing of FGM, it's still with us.
All right. And it's quite sad. I mean, Baby Sagini's story, we'll continue to follow up on the same. But it's really unfortunate that the child's life has really been transformed by the virtue of the fact that his eyes have now been taken away from him at such a young age. So, yeah.
I followed up on where the boy is. He's very safe, and because of the security measures,
and
we were advised not to. They are with the sister. Actually, they are here in Nairobi. We were told for the meantime, we keep it that way. But the boy is very safe with the sister.
All right.
Yeah.
And so we've run out of time, Wanjiru and Vivian. Yeah. I know you probably wanted to add something on what Mheshimiwa has said, but I guess we will have to come back and have a conversation on some of these issues that affect our communities on the ground. All right. And I think these social issues are also very paramount to have conversations around the same. All right. So allow me to say thank you so much, Vivian Ter, governance political analyst, for coming in for us through this morning. Donya Aburi, Kisii County Woman Member of Parliament, and Wanjiru Nguhi Fumbua, Program Manager from Baraza Media Lab. Unfortunately, as I had promised earlier, we did not have Khair Harun, who is a nominated Member of Parliament, but you can certainly continue with engaging with us on some of these issues that we've raised today in the morning. The hashtag, as always, is MLiveNTV at NTV Kenya, at Zainab Ismail. This is where we wrap it up. Your World is coming up shortly with Winnie Lubembe. My name is Zainab once again. Good night. Good morning.
Good night.